So when we look at the organic groups function, the naming of organic compound, then there are some others that we need to consider as a in order of priority. So which functional group takes the priority? So as we said, the anything that is a carbonyl, normally it's first. So we saw the example of when there is a carboxylic acid and for example there is an amine attached, the carboxylic acid would be the priority. But there are some others that can be a little bit more complex. For example, nitriles. Okay, those are also another class of compound that can take different functional group because different naming depending on which other functional group it's present, and this can be called nitrile at the end of the chain if it's the principal functional group, or it would take the prefix cyano, got an A, cyano, if there are other functional groups. Okay, so that's the other. So to summarize a little bit what we said about the functional group to make it a nicer ordered summary. The order of priority, and then we can practice a little bit of naming. First, we have the carboxylic acid, and I'm just going to write it as a structural formula. Oh, can't write COH. Then we have esters. Then we have acid halide. So, for example, the acyl chloride is the common one we see in these reactions. Then we have the amide. So notice that first are all of those with the carbonyl. In fact, then we have the nitrile actually comes at this stage, which means that the nitrile takes the priority over aldehydes and ketones. Okay, and then finally we have alcohols. And then we have thiol, but we don't really see that at this stage. Then we would have the amine. So the amine comes after. I'm going to write it as an R in this case because it could be hydrogen or carbon groups depending on the classification, if it's primary, secondary, or so on. Then at number 10, we would have the benzenes. Do the little structure. Okay, so we have all of these arenes, so the cyclic one. And then we have the alkenes. Then we have the alkynes. And then, so as you can see, then we have the normal, actually the last one that we see here is the nitro group that actually we just see it with benzene. Okay, and the ones that can take a different name depending on priority, actually most of them, but the ones that we see at A levels are alcohols. So if it's priority, it would take, of course, the OL as a suffix. If it's not priority, it would be called hydroxy something. Amines, they would take the suffix amide or amino. Let's say here, this is priority. And this is non-priority. Okay, so those are, I would say, the principal ones that we need to know. Okay, because all the other ones we won't really, the cyano, I forgot, which is over here. So if it's priority, it takes the cyano name, or if it's not priority, it would be, it would be nitrile. No, actually, no, sorry, it's the other way around. Getting confused here. So nitrile, because as you can see, suffix, it's always a priority. But when it's a prefix, it's a non-priority. So be cyano when it's non-priority. Okay. So it's very important. The one that you will see for sure in A levels are actually amino acids in this topic of amines, because in amino acid, we have this case where the amine, for example, this, let's do it like this. When the amine is not the principal functional group. So let's try with this one. First, we need to identify the principal functional group, which is carboxylic acid. We know that's always at the top because carbonyl is one of the priorities. So we know that that's going to be the one that determines the name. But the naming of the numbering of the chain starts from that.
Does
so
that counts as carbon 1? Completely forgot about that.
Exactly. So that would be the carbon 1. Yes, so it would be 2 amino and then pentanoic. acid. But I forgot that the methyl, and this follows the alphabetical order. So the amino goes first, and the methyl would go here. So we would have 2 amino, 3 methyl pentanoic acid, or one word. We don't need the space. Okay, so that's a good example to be familiar with in A level. One very common one that often you're not asked to draw it, but it's definitely one product that you come across in A level, because it's the reaction between a cyanide and a carbonyl, so aldehydes and ketones. This would form this product. Let's try to name it. So with the nitrile, it's our priority functional group, so we would consider that as carbon 1. So we counted the longest chain, so it's a pent, and we have a methyl group and a hydroxy. So the hydroxy would come first, so it would be 2 hydroxy, 2 methyl, and then it's a pentane, because it's carbon-carbon single bond, so we leave the pentane, and then nitrile. So it's a long name, and if you recall, this is the product of, that's why we name it, because you never know what could come up in the exam, but it's something that definitely this could come up, because if we have the reaction between a ketone and the nitrile, this is the product. Okay, and you never know if you're asked to name it, and normally in A level is like just maybe 1 or 2 mark question, but still I think it's good to practice at least once.